Obviously, I need to know what the game is all about, and that doesn't mean I am familiar with just the storyline or just the main quest or some secondary quest. But the better we understand what we are working with, what kind of clay we have in our hands and how we can form it, the more we know about how this game is built from a technical standpoint, what kind of system are driving this game, how we can take advantage of those systems. I'm a bit tired because today my kid decided to wake me up at 6 a.m. Now it's 8 p.m., so it's been, long 14 hours for me, and today is still not about to end, so it's gonna be a long one.
What else is on the schedule?
Well, actually, you're the last one, so hopefully I'm gonna chill right after we stop, or right after we finish our talk. So, uh, yeah.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm gonna keep it as short and
No
consistent
problem.
as.
Anytime, as much time as you need.
Martin, let's talk about the expectations and the excitement behind this release because I think this is one of the most expected video games of the year.
Yeah. It so happens it is. Expectations are huge. My excitement is also quite significant, but this expectation part actually keeps me alerted at all times, because it was actually with The Witcher when I realized how many people are waiting to finally be able to play the game we were working on. And with Cyberpunk, turns out the crowd is even bigger. So me as an artist myself, obviously I don't want to disappoint with whatever art I'm coming up with. So even though I feel quite confident about our work, about what we've done with the game in general, what we've done with the music in particular, there's still this tiny factor of me being frightened. How does it all come together in the end once the game is released?
When it comes to expectations, once you approach a project of this stature, of this magnitude, and having been a part of major, massive projects in the past, what do they expect from you? How does the process of coming up with a score for a video game of this magnitude come about?
Well, it's actually easier than it would appear, or that people might think that it is, because CD Projekt Red as a company, as an gathering of people, uh, this is the group that likes to take risks, which creatively is a very good thing for me, because that means I can just take risks as well. And instead of doing a or working with a safe approach, we can go wild, experiment a bit, invest, not waste time on seeing what kind of things would work, what kind of things wouldn't work. So it's actually a very safe environment for an artist like myself, because it allows you to explore yourself and go beyond even your limits to try to catch that that spark that makes all the difference, really, with the
Mm.
music.
When it comes to exploration, how far into the whole cyberpunk narrative do you have to go, or do you allow yourself to go in order to achieve what you want as a musician, as a creator, and of course as the main man behind the music of this video game?
Obviously, I need to know what the game is all about, and that doesn't mean I am familiar with just the storyline or just the main quest or some secondary quest. But the better we understand what we are working with, what kind of clay we have in our hands and how we can form it, the more we know about how this game is built from a technical standpoint, what kind of system are driving this game, how we can take advantage of those systems to make our thing with the music, the better results happen in the end. So for me, it's crucial to jump into the project as quickly and as early as possible. With Cyberpunk, we actually started thinking, not working yet, but thinking about the music, how we would approach this cyberpunk theme in general, from the day one of production. So when they were figuring out what kinds of story they want to tell, we were we have been feeded with this information constantly, and we were able to think, okay, how we gonna score this story with music, what kind of specific sounds of or timbers or factor of the sound we would choose to score specific elements, and how in this way we would elevate the whole experience, because in the end that's the role of the music in visual media in general, not only games but movies as well, to elevate the main piece of art that this music is illustrating.
How does it differ from the movie perspective, from the music for movie making experience?
Well, obviously there's one significant difference between movies and games. So doesn't matter how many times you watch your favorite movie, it's still gonna be a series of specific shots and scenes shot in a very specific way, with fixed lighting, fixed edit, fixed music montage, editing, and so on. While the game, I like to think about the games as they are living and breathing organisms, as especially the games made by CD Projekt, because this studio is very well known. It has built its own reputation on creating big open world games with very engaging non-linear branching storylines. So with that level of complexity, it's important for us composers to answer to that challenge accordingly, and adjust ourselves to make this experience better, because in the end that's the key role of the music in video games.
That's an interesting point. I mean, it's got to be crazy and really complex to get into that non-linear type of writing and developing a video game, and just coming up with the music for every single possible circumstance that populates it, isn't it?
Yeah, well, especially if you think about it in a way, from the player's perspective, because we, the developers, the creators of this project, we know very well what is the number of possible permutations in any given moment of a specific quest, for example, or a narrative arc or whatever. But once you get a controller in your hands and start to play this game as a gamer, as someone who is going to consume that piece of media, you experience it as a really linear experience, because you can make the first playthrough, make some choices, the game adapts to your choices, and drives you in some unexplored areas. Then you go with the second playthrough, the game again changes, but it still delivers bespoke experience, and it's our role to figure out how many junctions the music signal can take, with how many other music pieces it should be connected together in order to deliver seamless musical delivery, so you as a player can just experience the scene as in as cinematic way as it was designed in the first place. But what's going on under the hood is just a completely different story.
I'd love to know more about that under the hood story, man. I mean, that's got to be crazy stuff, man. I mean, it's not like writing, like I said before, it's not like writing a soundtrack for a movie, because it's kind of like it, but it's not, in the sense that I guess you must have a lot of people working on that under the hood experience as well, right?
Yes, well, I myself am lucky enough to, be able to taste the honey from different honey pots, because I have been working on some TV stuff as well in my past. So I've got a bit of experience from both worlds, and even though the majority of my work remains the same when I'm working on a TV series or a video game, for me the real fun part really starts with video games, because even though there are some constraints, this element of adaptiveness, and um how deep you can go with those, you know, changes you are preparing your music for is the really exciting part.
Do the piano and the trumpet, and you're studying those two instruments, feed the experience for cyberpunk and for the music that you're making, or is this just a totally detached experience from your experience as a session musician and as a trained musician?
Not necessarily in Cyberpunk case. First of all, I've never been a brilliant musician. I always been an average one. So, you know, my wife is a classical pianist. So when we needed some piano cues for Cyberpunk, I just reached out to her. So, you know, she could help me out with her performance because, you know, even her performance or her worst day would be better than mine on my best day, right? So that sort of thing. But well, you know, the things sonically and in terms of musical style we did with Cyberpunk are so completely different compared to everything I've done in my past. Even though, you know, I am a trained musician with master's degree in music, that really wasn't, you know, a necessary set of skills to follow. I had to develop, you know, a completely new set of skills, even, you know, try to reinvent myself more as a music producer or even a DJ at some points rather than composer because the creative decisions we took made us change our process completely in a way.
You talk about training yourself with, for example, being a DJ. Tell me a bit more about that experience for cyberpunk.
Well, for example, I've never used Ableton in my life until I started to work on Cyberpunk. I've never used a machine control, you know, that thing with pads you can, you know, trigger sounds and do your own arrangements on the fly. I always consider myself as a more traditional based composer, you know, with proper timeline, arrangement window and so on. And obviously I did took advantage of these tools, but I quickly realized that, you know, once you have a task in front of yourself or creating, you know, techno-based track, for example, or some piece of music that heavily draws from rave or industrial or, you know, that sort of thing, you realize that you might want to change your creative approach to to the stuff you are doing at the given moment because the things you know really well are experienced with may not be the best tools available to deliver that task.
Are there any other explorations in the making of the score? You've explored with various several instruments. You worked with Pavel on another experience before. I think it was in 2018, 2017, and you worked with different instruments and you were kind of like, playing around with new stuff. Are you exploring with new stuff in this case beyond the Ableton and the pads?
Oh, absolutely. You know, the sole decision of us three, PT, Paul, and myself, deciding that most of the score, like, you know, 98, 99% of the score would be purely electronic, determined the arsenal we would have to pick for this kind of job. So obviously we went straight to synthesizers and not just, you know, those regular ones people might expect. So like, you know, Prophet one or maybe a Maxi Brute or maybe a Moog synthesizer. Yeah, we all have those. Obviously, they are still there, but the actual fun part begins where you discover that there is so much more in that world. So actually, the camera doesn't show it, but I've got on a stand here Soviet-made Polyvox, which is synthesizer made in my particular unit was made in 1982, so it's almost 40 years old. It looks like it looks actually really bad because it's, you know, made of really cheap plastic. The knobs are nothing you would expect from, you know, a good piece of hardware like Moog or Arturia stuff or whatever. They actually look like, you know, you would take them from nuclear plant. Sorry, it's late here. So, you know, it's not pretty, The keyboard is just bad. The worst keyboard I've ever played on. But the sound that thing generates is just, out of this world. And we actually had much more of these toys because I've owned one. PT Adamczyk also owns a Polyvox. All of us three, Paul included, own Folktech Mescaline synthesizer, which is experimental or boutique. I'm not even sure how to call it. It basically looks like a circuit board with cables attached to it. It doesn't have any standardized, input method like a keyboard or pads or whatever. You just have to plug in and plug out cables, almost like an Eurorack, but in a less elegant way. The funniest part is that the manual for that device is very, very sparse. So you need to commit yourself, take a leap of faith and dive into that machine to try to understand it and figure out how it works. And once you have that in your hand, you suddenly discover that its capabilities are almost limitless. It can produce the sweetest, the most, romantic sound you would ever think of synthesizer making that sound. And the other day, it will smack you in the face with the most brutal groove ever created. So it's like visiting a toy shop, really.
That's amazing. Let me ask you a question out of sheer ignorance, but being close to movies and being close to video games and to pop culture and how scores and soundtracks differ. What is the main difference? I understand that, of course, the score plays like a major role in everything that happens surround wise, environmentally wise for a video game or a movie. And in a soundtrack, well, it's just like songs and stuff. But in this case, how are they connected in Cyberpunk?
Our marketing and communication guys often like to say that the real hero or protagonist of the city of this game is actually the city. And I like to think about it as well from the standpoint of music, because in the end, the night city is the most dense, colorful, vibrant, and brutal place in a video game I've seen in a while. And um, we had a very hard yet exciting task to basically breathe some life into that city, because you may have, the most beautifully looking level. Can have the best animations, 3D models, cars, NPCs, whatever, but it's the sound and music that breathes life into that moving abstract. So when you add to that we really try to go on full scale with the night city, and with its inhabitants, how many social groups are living in night city, various gangs, old people, young people, poor ones, rich ones, corpos, not corpos, cyberpunks. You quickly realize that in order to deliver that believable experience that people, once they play the game, they actually believe that Night City exists. We figured that we can obviously do it through the music, but in order to serve justice to that, we would have to come up with specific sets of music, of playlists, of source music, in interactive ads and other stuff to reflect what people living in Night City would listen to. Because honestly, you wouldn't expect a Maelstrom ganger, for example, listen to the same stuff as Arasaka Corpo would listen to, for example, or some youngster on the streets. So in order to maintain this illusion of a real place, we basically had to do it from scratch.
And when it comes to the soundtrack and Refused being a part of the soundtrack as a samurai band, can you elaborate a bit on how that collaboration came about and if you had anything to do with it?
Well, I myself didn't take part in it because that was PT's Adamczyk's idea from the start to finish. Once we realized, once we as a music team discovered that the main storyline is gonna heavily feature Johnny Silverhand, which is a cult figure in cyberpunk lore, we had to come up with his vocal singing voice, basically, because Johnny as a rocker I don't remember exactly when he died in Cyberpunk timeline, but in 2077 he's been dead for I don't know, 50, 60 years or so. So he has become, at least to my eyes, a cult person in a way. Maybe I don't want to make, comparisons to Elvis Presley, for example, but the common part is that the Elvis was huge. People loved Elvis, and Elvis is dead. So basically, the three elements those two characters are sharing with each other. And so once we got that information that okay, that Keanu died, Johnny died. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
That Johnny died roughly in, let's say, 2018, 2020, I don't remember exactly, and that he is this truest form of a rocker boy. PT actually proposed Refuse as his first idea, and it clicked so well that I really cannot imagine us going with different artists, really.
And it sounds amazing. Whatever when all the stuff that we've seen so far is amazing. So we really look forward to hearing the whole thing that you guys have come up with for this video game. It's certainly quite an exciting experience and quite a thrill to talk to you. And I want to thank you for taking the time at this late time of your night. I hope, I hope you get some rest, man. And before I let you go, I want to ask you about, the dystopian nature of the video game and what you see that it may have in common with the world and how you perceive it from your musical standpoint. Do you think that we're approaching a world where maybe we'll become cyberpunk sooner than later?
That's not a very good question to ask in 2020 in general. That's the first thing I would say, that you need to be careful with that because, shit happens this year. So yeah, that's the first part. But on a more serious note, I think we kind of started living in cyberpunk in a way, because if you think about, the core element of cyberpunk genre in general is, for me at least, the cyberpunk is, a singular entity being afraid of either the system or the danger around, or, the city or the society eating you up basically and throwing you away. If you add to that this transhumanism thing, where from the philosophical standpoint, Philip K. Dick, for example, asks question when the human stops and when the machine begins, for example, right? We are kind of doing it in this very moment because of the neural networks. With machine learning, we gave up our freedom to the apps, day by day, right? You have the app for that, you have the app for that, this app is suggesting you this app will do something for you, you have Alexa at home, you have smart home, that basically operates itself, and obviously it makes your lives easier, but the shady part behind it is that we already have some mega corporations already, right? So I don't even want to think, where that can drag us to the future, because that might be scary.
I know. Listen, Marcin. Well, yeah, we got philosophical at the end, but I really wanted to have your take on the Philip K. Dick philosophy of the whole deal. And once again, thank you very much. It's been an honor, and it's been great talking to you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Take good care.
Thanks.
Goodbye.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.